There have been a lot of comparisons between China's current government and Nazi Germany. Most of these comparisons came from the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, when the catchphrase Chi-Nazi was coined by the protesters who were fighting against China's control over their city. The comparison was face value and reactionary, but since its boom in popularity in Hong Kong, more and more people are making the comparison between the Communist Party of China and Nazi Germany in detail. I'd like to break it down in a non-sensationalist manner. I think it's lazy to say that these two political systems are identical, but I also think it's immoral to be too scared to draw some comparisons and differences because it's too sensitive of a topic. Most people shy away from it. Sorry. It's tempting to look at mainland China like an East Asian version of the Soviet Union. All of the symbolism, the architecture, and just the general feel of many aspects of communist China is very Soviet in nature. The problem is, other than the oppressive leadership of the government, the similarities kind of stop there. The Soviet Union, although immensely flawed and broken, did provide more to its citizens from a communist lens. Long waiting lines for things like apartments were a massive detriment, but the apartments and utilities like water, etc., were covered by the government. China provides no such social programs. The semi-free market capitalist society, paired with the fact that you don't actually own your property, and most businesses have Communist Party ties, mean that it's the worst of both worlds, in that you are financially responsible for you and your family with none of the safety nets that the Soviet Union provided. If you're interested in the Soviet Union, I highly recommend a channel called Ushanka Show, which is a YouTube show about a guy who lived in the Soviet Union and then moved to America. He talks about life, what life was like under the Soviet Union, and it's very fascinating. So, no. China and the Soviet Union, save for oppressive governments, have very little in common. The main comparison is, like I said, to Nazi Germany. Let's cover some points. The first is both are authoritarian one-party states. There is no free participation in the political system from citizens unless they hold positions of power in the government. Yes, this is true, and the party structure is strikingly similar if you look into detail. Propaganda machines are present in everyday life, rife with misinformation. Yes, anyone living under the Third Reich in Germany was no stranger to banners, newspaper articles, and propaganda in education that often focused on the successes of the party, as well as directing all of Germany's problems to the rest of the world. Deflection and finger-pointing was a main feature in Nazi Germany. China takes this to a whole different level. This is a country that blocks most information coming from the outside world, and stirring up insane nationalism through propaganda and absolute lies. State-sanctioned social media accounts, blocked within China, are out in full force, blaming other countries for everything wrong within China. This parallel is very palpable. Concentration camps and persecution of religious minorities. This one's a bit dicey. We all know what happened during the Holocaust. The swift and horrible actions of Nazi Germany led to millions of Jews dead, and in the most inhumane ways possible. Other religions were persecuted, but not to the same level of the Jews. China has persecuted religious minorities since it came to power in 1949. Religious leaders are disappeared, churches are demolished, and the current camps in Xinjiang, which, as far as we know now, hold 1 million plus ethnic Uyghurs, who are Muslim in faith, for re-education, separated from their families, and not a whole lot is known after that. We do know that China's oppression in Xinjiang has fought to stop any Uyghur identity, strip their language, culture, religion, and traditions, and claim full ownership over this land. But we are now only seeing it in its most sinister form. The comparison to Nazi Germany shouldn't be made here in the purest of definitions, as the only proven genocide here is cultural genocide. While there are most definitely horrific things happening in these camps, it is a slow extermination, and not to the same scale of Nazi Germany. You can be jailed for political crimes. Both systems have intricate police and domestic spy networks. Nazi Germany was highly surveilled through its secret police, the societal network of distrust that rewarded people who ratted each other out, and swift and brutal punishment of any dissent or political protest. China has a very similar situation going on, but it has the advantage of having a robust, technology-driven surveillance network through things like the social credit system, where citizens are ranked and rewarded through behavior that the state deems good, and punished based on behaviors that show a lack of support or criticism for the Communist Party of China. All political dissent is severely punished, and more people are executed in China each year for political crimes than the rest of the world combined. Racist superiority in politics. Nazi Germany was an ethno-state, meaning that it made racial purity one of its defining features. This led to the belief that blonde hair and blue-eyed Germans were a chosen race and led to a superiority complex that bolstered nationalism within its borders. It was a potent and successful method of brainwashing. China is also effectively an ethno-state. There are 56 recognized ethnic minorities that are all under the branch of Chinese. You can be Mongolian, but you're still Chinese. You can be Tibetan, but you're still Chinese. Their cultures have been diluted and destroyed through Han chauvinism. Cultures like the Mongolians and Tibetans and others are diametrically opposed to the collective nature of Han Chinese culture. The Chinese government consistently plays on Western sensitivities and claims that any criticism of the Communist Party of China is racist. They've mastered the art of victimhood while simultaneously making actual victims of its own populace. Both use diplomatic showmanship for soft power. Germany used sleazy soft power to slide into European economies, but also used grander gestures like holding the 1936 Olympics to prove that it had a place on the world stage. It was a massive propaganda victory for Nazi Germany as it gave the regime legitimacy in the world. Athletics seems to be a very important feature of oppressive regimes, as sports are a worldwide phenomenon and can successfully pull the wool over people's eyes from other countries. When people are cheering on their country in an international forum like the Olympics, they tend not to look at things like human rights atrocities. China also used athletics and hosted the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. There were instances of cheating, doping, and scummy events like deeming the singer of the national anthem too ugly to be the one on stage. The 2008 Olympics were a very important feature of Chinese nationalism and gaining face. Villages were bulldozed and entire parts of the city were upheaved to make China's showpiece. It worked as many people watching the elaborate ceremonies stopped viewing China as a brutal dictatorship, but a wealthy and prosperous nation with cute mascots. An all-powerful leader with an inner circle of yes-men and a system where you cannot rise to success without party connections. I think this comparison goes without saying. The Nazi Party of Germany was distilled into an absolute dictatorship. The Communist Party started this way with Chairman Mao, but the party became so large and regionalized that it marginally liberalized slowly throughout its succeeding leaders. However, the current leadership, Xi Jinping, has amassed all of that power again through anti-corruption campaigns and other authoritarian rulings, and China is effectively a proper dictatorship again. All points of success within China rely on Communist Party connections, as the party has its fingers in almost everything within the country. These are some of the biggest similarities and differences, but there are many, many more that I'd like to delve more into in the future. In summary, the calculated approach of control that China exhibits, as well as its more palatable international image, make it a potent force to be reckoned with. The more drawn-out way that the Communist Party has operated makes it appear more tolerant on the surface than Nazi Germany. But keep in mind, this is a party that has tens of millions of its own lives on its death count, and that in itself is a stain worth remembering. Thank you for those supporting my work on Patreon, as monetization has been a hit or miss these days on YouTube, and this video is almost guaranteed to be demonetized. Don't forget, you can catch me every single Wednesday with another China-focused video on Law 86. Every single Monday, you can watch our motorcycle talk show on Two Wheels, where we discuss usually China-related things, but while riding motorcycles in different countries. On Friday, you can check out Serpent ZA, which is my business partner and friend, and he covers China topics as well. And then we also have, and don't forget, this is very important, every other Thursday, our long-form podcast. If you like long-form videos, you're going to really enjoy that. So tune in every other Thursday to ADV Podcasts. Thank you so much, Lao Winners, and I'll catch you on the next one.